What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Pro vs. Pro. Justin cannot be with us this week, but hey, let's give him credit where it's due. He is watching his son's, I believe, first baseball game of the season, so priorities definitely in order. So instead, I'm joined by my good buddy, Geoff Feinberg. Geoff, are you excited for this Valero Texas Open, or are you just already kind of in Masters mode?
No, I'm excited for the Valero. I like this field. I think it'll be interesting. I think it's a fun opportunity for some of us, like guys who are deep in the weeds with golf, to like that full slew of internationals. I got no issues for the week. I'm sure maybe once all my bets sort of die early and all my lineups don't make the weekend, I'll quickly be ready to get to next week's big one. But no, I always enjoy Valero.
So one of the reasons why I asked you on the show this week is because to me this seems like just a really great week to just kind of talk about the general landscape of golf and who amongst us is more just into the PGA Tour and the product as a whole than you are. And so where I want to start this conversation is kind of on match play. What's your take on match play? How did you enjoy last week and just how sad are you that it's going away?
I mean, I enjoyed last week. My bets didn't do very well, but so you got to convince yourself of anything when you like to do outright golf betting, Alex. And I can take it from I was on the wrong guys. But what I projected to happen essentially happened, in that being we had more Pool A players win than ever before. I believe it was nearly 50% at 7 of 16. I believe the average historically has been 33% since we've gone into pool play. And all of the final four were Pool A players. So again, we get to this point where golf betting actually feels like it's getting easier. I'm getting worse at it, but it does actually feel like it's getting easier. I'm just like, you feel what I'm saying in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
So from that betting perspective, it didn't go well. Although, like I said, the Pool A players with the lack of depth in the field really did rise. We had very few like Pool A versus Pool A. I think in the round of 16, the only one like that was Cantley Burns, which ended up being a fun one. And the winner came out of that. And had Cantley won, could have seen him catching the wagon through the weekend. I don't think we got another Pool A versus Pool A in the Sweet 16. And then in the round of Elite 8, we had the Schauffele Rory match, which was a Pool A v Pool A. I'm going to miss match play for a week, a year. Like, it has a place. I kind of said this on many points. I enjoy it from betting. People enjoyed it from betting. It makes horrible TV. Let me just back up a little bit. From a content perspective, it's the best, Alex. Think of all like your favorite memories, be it Keegan Bradley and his caddy almost fighting Miguel, or DJ and Kevin Na, or like Bubba trying to put JB Holmes on a clock under a cacti. Like, you really get the personalities of the guys in many cases. And from a content perspective, it's great. It gives us insights and then like little things that can happen that we can turn into shows. Like I'm sure we did after DJ and Kevin Na or something, like, right? We turn that into segments. Right. So it's great for content. It's a completely different style of golf. You're in trouble on a regular event. You just let me get out of here with a bogey, right? Anything but a double we can live with in this moment, right? That's good based on where my shitty tee shot went. In match play, it's like, shit, my guy's got 20 feet for birdie. That's a guaranteed par. I have to try to hit an amazing shot. And with that, we see a lot of guys hit horrible shots, but we see that fine line of them like trying to be amazing around the greens or from 200 yards out. Because like I said, buddy's 20 yards away. Like, from, if I don't make a 4, what's the point? So that aspect, you get a whole other aspect. And to end my long-winded rant, I've been redundant on what I think could happen with Sunday, but they could just make it a celebration of golf, because it's boring. It's a match that cannot be great, and then it's a match that can be lopsided. So there's two like fine lines that can really hurt Sunday. A match of people that no one cares about, and then even if it's someone who people care about, it can be really lopsided and therefore lack any sort of true entertainment value. I've long said, let's get some NFL quarterbacks in there, other athletes, PGA legends.
Yeah.
Let's get some of the ladies, the amateurs we're going to meet in a week at Augusta. Let's throw them out there to play a match. Makes people uncomfortable. Some handicap golfers would blow people's mind. I'm just saying they can make it a celebration of all of this. And I get angry when someone like Chambly says it's too random. There's too much money. There's too much points on the line. And you watch that PGA live on a Thursday, Friday. I mean, we see so much random. If you're like deep into the weeds, I get it. Like you want to follow the models. You have your systems that can lead you to success and winning money. But with that, there's an in-game variance in golf that's way bigger than a ref making like a shitty call. It's like crazier. Yeah. It's like that ball can hit a baby stroller and it's live and go any way. That my ball can hit a Marshall. I'm a good player. I have a gallery. You're a bad player. You don't have a gallery. PGA setups, pro golf setups allow for the craziest things with drops and free relief and what's not free relief. And then the angle you can get because you got free relief from a horrible shot. Like there's randomness everywhere, Chambly. So for a week, a year, we can go mano a mano and deal with shooting a 72 and going home and Buddy or 72 and advancing and the Buddy shoots a 68 and goes home because that's just what mano a mano golf is. So I say a lot of words, but I care a lot about match play and I hope they find a way.
If in any event you have the top four guys being Rory, Scotty, Cam Young, and Sam Burns, the overwhelming opinion is going to be, wow, look what this course did. It brought the absolute best players in the field to the top of the leaderboard. That's what we asked for. That's what we got in match play. And I think one of the best points you made there gets to the product of match play on TV. And one of my favorite things that you said was like, there's a little bit that's totally out of the tour's control and out of NBC's control or whatever, in that, yeah, you might end up with a final that is two guys that people don't really want to watch. We didn't get that this week. We got some rising stars and some really excellent players. But theoretically, it could have been like Mackenzie Hughes versus Brian Harman, and nobody wants to watch that. So there's that aspect to it. I think that's going to be extremely rare, especially as the field gets deeper and deeper because the talent in golf is just growing every single year, and golf is in a phenomenal place in that regard. But one thing I want to push back on that I think a lot of people have made the point of is like, hey, there are only four guys on the course, so there's a lot of dead time. My experience as a viewer this week was there were only four guys on the golf course and we were still missing shots. Or we were still seeing shots like 2 minutes after they actually happened, after they're showing up on the PGA Tour's tracker. So if you're going to miss shots, you can't then have it both ways and say, yeah, we have too much dead time where no one's hitting a ball. Well, maybe that's because you're missing some of the key shots. So I really want to push back on that. And I don't think that's really coming from you. It's coming from a lot of people around the industry, and certainly it's coming from some of these networks. It's like, hey, if you guys showed us all the shots, there'd be less dead time.
Yeah, so that is obviously something I noticed as someone that was tracking matches they had money on and while also like observing on the TV. It does seem like when there's few matches on the course, they use a lot of time to do a lot of random things, and then they like can like 7 shots that they can show you in a row, and then they use so much dead time to show you nothing, and then because there's moments where they'll show a guy hitting 180 yard approach shot, then like 3 minutes, like not even 2 cutaways later, he's hitting the putt. So they're all over the place. Yeah. I got a lot of criticisms with the coverage. This is the last week of NBC. I look forward to getting CBS back, Alex. And maybe what I'm about to say is unfair. So I open the door for anyone out there to tweet me and just let me know when I'm missing it. Because maybe I'm like blinded by something. Smiley Kaufman is a straight, like, I'm not saying he's bad, but I'm also not saying he's good. So what I'm here to say is he is nothing. He is nothing. He doesn't make me laugh and he doesn't teach me anything. And I either need that like McCord, or I need like a bone. I need the insight of a Bones, or I need the humor of someone else. This guy is just, he's a nothing. It's just a flat line of no insight and no humor. And then I get to make my jokes of, wow, the life of being Jordan Spieth's friend, pretty freaking charming. You know, because
Yeah,
that's literally getting like a Monday night football spot. Like, that's a preeminent spot in golf broadcasting that he was handed. And I don't like, there were tester runs where you're like, okay, yeah, he's fine. He's okay. But now it's in a spot where like, maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I'm just angry about a bet and then something he's saying. So I literally now am asking people, like, let me know when you hear something insightful or funny, because I don't get anything from him.
So I think that I was really excited when I heard that he was getting the job, because I thought what we were going to get was some like juicy inside info from those guys, like good stories from him. I wonder how much the network is holding him back. Like, hey, no, you can't tell stories like that on air, something like that, where maybe it's not really his fault. But I do agree, like it doesn't seem like he's adding a ton. Now, on the other hand, at least he's not actively hurting the broadcast like Azinger. Azinger might be my least favorite broadcaster in all of sports. He just makes things up, and you can tell like he just thinks no one's ever going to call me out on my bullshit, so I'm just going to spew whatever nonsense I want.
Azinger is bad. It's polarizing, and it's frustrating because someone could print him out like a spreadsheet, like any of the model pages, and just teach him how to read it, and he could just not say the dumbest things and he assumed no one even knows if I'm right or wrong. It's like, actually, we literally stare at like this graph that goes from hot green to hot red every single week based on what a guy can actually do, which eliminates someone like me from just having perceptions based on the 3 shots we see on the TV. So you're right. Smiley, like he doesn't. Yeah, there's been no like, oh my God, Smiley said that moment. You're right, but I just mean, I don't know. Maybe I just like making the joke that between Smiley and Colt, it's just the friends of Spieth have gotten these. I've been the new young voices in golf broadcasts are just the friends of Spieth, which almost reminds you of like a Nota Begay 2.0, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
Fair.
Why not? That model works.
And on that note, like I think Nota is fantastic. So maybe these guys are going to grow into their role, and maybe they'll be better 3-5 years from now than they are right now.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Like, there's nothing juicy. I don't think we're expecting a Spieth scandal where like having Smiley on the payroll is going to be like invaluable,
right?
Because you're his best friend and there's some insane scandal going on. So now you're like the most important voice in golf,
right?
But yeah, I'm excited to get Nance and CBS back. I guess I'm being long-winded here, Alex, but the broadcast can always, but guys like me and you, we could nitpick it to death, as with anybody. As with anybody watching. I've always said hardcore golf fans are the least serviced hardcore fans of any pro league sport team. 100%.
Yeah, without question. I want to get back to match play for a second. I watched your show with Pat earlier this week, yesterday, I suppose it was. And I loved the point that you made in regards to the team event. Basically saying like in past years, you've been in on that. Hey, change it up from time to time. This year, you don't want it. If you're getting rid of match play, don't give me a team event that no one wants to watch. So let's kind of talk about, first of all, do you think we are going to get match play back eventually? And if we do, what's it going to look like?
Okay, so I actually believe in what I said, because I was always like, from the golf betting, the golf podcast, like, how many 4-day test cricket matches do we need in a season? Like, it seems pretty boring from the outside. Like, who cares? They're changing the pace. You still have your 45 stroke play events. Now, if you're taking away match play, I'm not going to stand for your team event, and I will not stand for your co-ed event, which I think is a good idea, which I do, because you, as Adam Scott says, only like 8 or 10 of these things freaking matter. You can do whatever you want with the rest of them, whatever you want.
Yeah.
right? What iteration? Well, Alex, it's difficult because if you honestly want to take these guys at face value in their word, then you're like, for sure, match play is going to be back. Because you hear Rory in an interview, you hear Rahm in an interview, like, I love it. It's great. It's different. Like, for all the reasons we like it, they like it. It's just me versus you. I don't have to beat 150 guys this week. I got to beat 6 or 7. Like, in some ways, for all the negatives, there's positives in their minds too. And you hear the elite players like really mention how they like it and they like that there's the change of pace. But no offense to Rory, he talks out of both sides of his mouth on every issue. So what do I even know what is the truth? Rory is honestly, Alex, he's become the tout. He's become the tout from that old 80s, 90s tout that had a phone number, and half the people that called got one side of the game, and the other half of the people called that got the other half of the game, and at least 50% of the people are calling and paying for the next game, right? Like that's what seems like Rory McIlroy talking means. And
he definitely has had a few quotes lately that have me scratching my head. Like, I would have assumed he was on the opposite side. Now, I will say there, though, like, that's kind of the price that you pay when someone is so willing to share their thoughts. Right?
Yeah, of course. And all of us who do podcasts, like, I don't know, do an hour podcast every week. I'm sure you've double spoke, like you've defended one issue one time, you've bashed it the other. Like, we're all guilty. I'm as guilty as anybody, but I've lost like this whole like Rory's holier than now shtick doesn't work with me. And I'm a Rory fan. If I'm going to lose bets next week, it would be amazing to see him win a Grand Slam with everything that's happened in the last year. That'd be a lovely, like, I would applaud and stand up on Sunday at dinner time for that. The easiest solution to some people seems like the weekend of the Tour Championship. That's like and people like come out with that idea yesterday. They think that's like the guy who puts French fries in his hamburger and thinks he invented it. You know what I mean? Like, we all did it. Like, what do you mean? Like, the guy's like, oh, you know what they should do? They should turn the weekend and Tour Championship into match play. It's an obvious idea. Right? I mean, majors used to be awarded as match play. It's important at the amateur level. It's important in the club level. It should be important. It has a place in the pro level. Now, we're not condoning a major championship being awarded for it. And maybe people would argue the Tour Championship is too high stakes. But if you're a sponsor of some shitty event, I'll just like Byron Nelson or whatever Honda becomes, like, aren't you calling the PGA? Please, like, I'd love to have match play. Zurich does the team event. You're like, we'd blow that thing up for match play in a moment.
No doubt about it. I think also, like, Justin and I talked last week from a player's perspective. We both have always thought, I wish we could play more match play. Like, in the amateur level, you get to play match play quite a bit. I remember there was a match play championship in the Philly level. There was a match play championship at the state level. There's a match play championship at my county level. Like, if I wanted to play 3 match play tournaments a year, I could easily. If I wanted to play 5 a year, I could easily. At the PGA Tour level, it's once a year other than the team President's Cup and Ryder Cup. So I think, if anything, we should be getting more match play, not less match play. I am a fan of the idea of it being the Tour Championship. The fun wrinkle that I would have to it is you get your like top 16 seeds, and so the Tour Championship, the match play wouldn't be like the final 20 or 30 guys. It would be the final 64. Okay. And then all of the 1 seeds, so 1 through 16, would then draft who is in their group. So whoever the number 1 seed is gets the first pick. He gets to choose the worst of the 64. How entertaining would that draft be?
I mean, there's been that argument in like all sports, Alex, that like teams should be able to pick their playoff opponents.
And I understand why like that will never ever happen in a professional league.
But like for all these leagues, it's like you make this week 17, like you want to have rivalry week where we all do, and we get it, like division rivals, those are important, but nothing would create a rivalry is created a snap of a finger. When I say, I'm calling you out, pal, like, or that team, like, you want to talk about creating it like it's almost like it's the easiest idea that everyone chooses to ignore, but it's so good.
Imagine a few years ago, like Bryson is the 20th ranked guy, so he's not getting a pick. Brooks Koepka is ranked 15th, and with his first pick, when everyone else is trying to choose the worst opponent possible, Brooks takes Bryson.
Yeah.
Like that's a fantastic
I gotta
story.
say, like now that you say it, I'm literally shocked they haven't tried this in some form of soccer.
Yeah.
Because soccer is like the sport that actually has relegation, which is, I mean, even in the whole live dynamic, I just hate live because I'm a spoiled North American sports fan, as I've said to you before, as we all are in North America. Like Ronaldo and Messi not being in the same league, like I'm not a soccer guy, but that just doesn't register with a spoiled North American sports fan. No, they should be in the same league.
Yes, they should.
But soccer is relegation, which is cooler than anything we have in North America. You think that your idea for calling out, like, I don't know how they do things. Their table, just they call their stadium.
And look, like you
I
obviously
love that idea. The PGA is not cool enough for that, Alex.
So here's the thing, like you obviously couldn't do it in a team sport because who's actually making that decision? And like, absolutely no owner, no coach, no GM would ever want the responsibility of that decision. But in golf, like it's just one dude. Of course he can make the decision. He's not making it for like not only
why doesn't tennis do that when every single one of their events is match play?
That'd be great. That'd be so great. But hey, that's my match play.
Like why don't people in tennis be like, I don't know, like now I'm being an idiot to be like, well, I don't, match is so random. I won my match and I played horrible, and then these two had this incredible match where both people were outstanding and someone had to lose. Like, yeah, like that's just called sports.
Yeah, and there's also like an element there of in every single individual match, so the smaller the sample, the more randomness you're going to get. But for someone to win in the round of 64, then the round of 32, 16, 8, 4, eventually a lot of that randomness gets drowned out and you just are left with who played the best that week. That's why we got a final as good as it was and a final four as good as it was.
And we're all self-aware. Like, I get it. Like, what's important is commercials at dinner time on Sunday being worth a lot, costing a lot when the most people are watching. Problem with match play, Alex, is really sort of like anything, like March Madness. Like, it's the most fun on Thursday. And what I mean by that is the 10-footer to win a hole on Thursday feels way more important, even in a group pod match, than anyone's 10-footer for birdie or par on Thursday tomorrow, like at the Valero this week. Like, so, right?
I'd also be really interested in seeing analysis of like how valuable this event is for advertisers, because on the one hand, the weekend isn't quite as gripping as it is in a normal event, but you also get a full extra day of golf that people are watching. So I would think it at least evens
on. Like, people don't even know it's happening. Most people probably turn that on and be like, that's weird. They're showing a replay of something. It's Wednesday. Golf shouldn't be on now. Rory drove the green. What year did that happen? Oh, that was now?
All right. Before we get to Valero, let's talk some Masters futures real quick. I don't think there are any numbers that jump out to me at the moment. I kind of think that the market has turned over the last few weeks. So I'm curious to hear what action you already have, and then we can kind of use the prop shop at FTN to see what number is still available on some of your favorite futures so far.
So I only have two. I've got we'll start with the longer shot one. I played like a few people, Minwoo Lee at 150 to 1. Yeah, that just, I don't know. I'm a sucker for him. He was even my one and done in match play, which is probably pretty stupid, but I got random. And I forgot I had it because when I did a show at like Christmas, I was like, I don't have any Masters futures. But I found it, I guess, when football season ended and, your pendings are a lot more empty and you could like see what's at the bottom, I guess. I have a Finau 50. That must have been from when he won. It's from like July. I guess he won, right? He won. And I'm like, well, now that he can win, maybe he can win the majors. And I will say he's got 3 top 10s in the last 5 years. And there's a vibe that he's not having a great year, but I don't think he's finished any event worse than 25th place or something this year, Alex. And I know match play, you can like quantify the placing however you want or just ignore it. But so that's when I kind of feel like seeing yeah, that's a guy I'm still interested in as the week's here. So I have the Finau and the Minwoo Lee tickets.
That's a great call on Tony. I didn't realize how incredibly consistent he's been. His worst event from a true strokes gain perspective since he won in November is only gaining 1.67 when he finished 20th at the Genesis. So it's a pretty damn good golf he's playing.
Yeah, and they're just and I guess like when you don't win or you're not in the heat of it Sunday. But yeah, there's just sort of this, and maybe it's just like a hot late round. I don't know how to quantify, but I'm just saying I stared at it. I was like, whoa. Because I was like, has he not been playing that great? And you see, it's like he's actually been playing really well. Our expectations for him are just so, I guess, incredibly high in terms of now winning or being right there on Sunday that we almost, you forget that it's just kind of been a run of every event finishing pretty much inside the top 25, maybe.
Yeah, it's also a bias of just like what we see. He hasn't really been in contention, so we haven't seen him playing really well. He's just been around.
Yeah, and I don't need a deep dive Finau for anybody or his Masters success, but that's the bet I have. And truth be told, I'm expecting like a full reset on most of the guys. I think Scotty, Rory stay under 10. I think Rahm probably ends up like being the third wheel there because Rory in the Grand Slam and Scotty is just like and then after that, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, a couple things. I don't know which really good player I want to bet yet. I'm waiting for the market to reset. I think there's so much books and competition now that someone's going to offer me something that I'm going to bite on. And if a total casual or my friends who never bet golf but the Masters ask me who they should bet, I honestly feel like telling them, like, we're golf snobs, so we're not going to bet a 10-1. Or even the thought of betting 2 10-1s is insane. But people that don't bet golf, you could tell them to bet 2 guys at 10-1, and they're like fine and happy with that. Weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
So be like, I don't know, pick Rory or Scotty and like, how many guys can win? I've said 15. Some people would say that's too many. Others would say like that could be not enough. I haven't decided which really good player I'm betting on yet, Alex. I just haven't.
Yeah, it really depends on your definition of could win. Like, are you talking non-zero chance, or are you talking like a 1% chance? And that's going to be a dramatically different answer there. I have a lot of futures in already. I have Gary Woodland at 160. I no longer really like that one. That's one that I made early in this year. I think it was back in January even. What I do love about his game right now is he is driving the ball exceptionally well. He has gained in every single event since October off the tee, which is like, that's when Gary's at his best. It's when he's driving the ball really well. When he was at the height of his career, he was gaining most consistently off the tee. So the foundation of his game is there. But when I put this bet in, I was hoping that around this time, his odds would have fallen to like, let's say 70 to 80-1, in large part because he showed some kind of spark either on or around the greens, both of which play a big part at Augusta. He has been a train wreck both on and around the greens. So if I had to make this bet today at this number, I wouldn't be doing it. But hey, that's the risk you take with futures. And like I said, like, he's still, the foundation of his game off the tee is good enough for this one to be worthwhile still. My favorite bets though for the Masters, we talked earlier, Keith Mitchell, 250-1 on Bet Rivers. He's down to like 66 at best everywhere. That was just a horrible line. I think it was because the books weren't sure if he was actually going to be in the Masters, if he would qualify. When I made this bet, he was just within the top 50 in the world. And so I guess the books were like, hey, well, what if he falls a few spots? We should really bump this number. But like the only guys who were around him in the rankings were live guys. So we knew that those guys were falling down. Mitchell pretty much only had one direction to go. He did go up a little bit, even
It's a good
without playing
spot.
that well in those last few events. So yeah, that's a great number. And then Siwoo Kim, 150 to 1. Everybody listening to this show knows I've had this one for quite a bit. And this one I still really love. I mean, his game is definitely trending upwards, and he's a phenomenal fit for
What's
Augusta.
his number right
But he
now?
is around the greens.
What's his odds currently?
Let's see. I know it's falling pretty significantly. The best available now is 120 on FanDuel, and then it drops to 100 anywhere else.
Yeah, that's one, I guess, if you don't have it and you're thinking about it. FanDuel doesn't react the fastest, but if Siwoo shows life this weekend, that's one.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, as I say, like you don't really need to bet the Masters this week because there's probably going to be a reset of odds for that tier of players. Like that tier of players, not like the Kentley, Xander, Morikawa, and that, past those big three, past Spieth, but then that next couple tiers. But you have that small handful of players, maybe like Siwoo and probably Connors, as much as like people don't want to stomach an outright Connors bet for the Masters. He's got those 3 straight top 10s. He's playing great. If match play was a stroke play, I think Connors, Davis, Thompson, and Cam Young all in the same pod probably all would have been like top 10 of the 64 after Friday night or something. They were all outstanding through their play. That's a long-winded way of saying I'm not really condoning the Corey Connors Masters bet, but he's one of the few players this week who like the 80 could drop to 60 just by him playing how he's playing and being on TV on the weekend in a week field. Siwoo, another one. Just like if you're thinking, do I not do it? Like if he's playing well, you bet it because he's one of like 3 or 4 guys who actually do have a chance of their number getting shorter. Well, I think most of the players you are thinking about are very probably going to see a boost in their odds with the competition we'll see next week.
Yeah, if Siwoo gets hot with the irons this week, I might be doubling down on that bet because he's definitely someone who like when his irons get hot, they tend to stay hot. So I would like that. My other favorite future for the Masters, I have to say, Sam Burns. I got at 55 this past week. He's already down to 40 at best, and like 28 or 32 in a lot of spots. But man, I don't know how many people have noticed. Like Burns has had a very specific strokes gain profile for the last year and a half, I'd say, where he's great with approach, he's great putting, and then I wouldn't necessarily call his driving accuracy or his short game a weakness in comparison to tour average. They're kind of neutral for the tour. His driving accuracy may be a little bit below average for the tour, but at least in comparison to the other world's best players and the other guys who win as often as he does, both of those are real weaknesses, or at least they have been. Since the American Express, his short game has been pretty outstanding and it's been consistently good. And now he's also driven the ball really accurately in 6 of the last 7 and each of the last 4 events. So I was talking with one of my good buddies, Geoff at Rotomania on Twitter, one of the best baseball DFS players in the world and quite a good PGA player as well. And he made the point to me last week, like this was probably in the Elite 8 or something. So before he made the run to win, he said, I'm not sure Burns is really back yet because the approach play hasn't been what it was when he was at his best, when he was winning all these events last year. And that's true. His approach play hasn't. But the point that I've been making is I feel confident that the approach play will eventually return. And I think this is one of those instances where you can clearly see like a progression in his weaknesses, particularly that short game. So it's probably a case of he's been spending so much time trying to turn that weakness into a strength that of course some part of his game might suffer. Eventually, though, I think the approach play comes back. And when it does, he's not just going to be the player that he was last year. He could be a much better player than he's ever been. And I think that's pretty exciting for Burns.
Always exciting. And I don't know how a guy that I just love is like just consider a natural born winner, like just went over my head in match play. But I agree with everything you said there. I like Burns a lot. Even the 40s, I think you might consider fair for next week. And he's got an ability to spike, and that's kind of all you're betting on from that range. And we've seen sort of where he's being priced at for the Masters, Alex. For the first time major winners, it's that price point that's been a lot kinder than, say, chasing the Xander Cantley, which I can be guilty of. But just thinking about Hideki, Reed, Sergio, those were all like the 40 to 60.
Yeah.
First time major wins at the Masters. Even Willett, as much as I'm proud to still brag about a ticket that was really big. The week of the tournament, he was like 66 to 1. By the time that event actually got there. So just something to think about when betting on first-time major winners. It's that Burns pocket range that's actually been the profitable one at Augusta in my time, at least betting, like paying attention from the betting perspective.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because you're getting a lot of guys in that range who at least have the capability of quickly becoming one of the best players in the world. So it's not like this major teardrop in talent. A lot of the times the drop in odds from those guys to the guys who are like in the 20 to 30 range is that they haven't had a big signature win yet. But we've seen time and time again that almost everybody on tour, almost every accomplished player on tour, I should say, has that capability of closing in the big moments. They don't necessarily need to have done it previously on that stage because as Justin and I have talked about a lot on the show, like to just get to the tour, you have already had to face and overcome some of the highest pressures in all of golf. Like you also hear from player after player, like the pressure of the last round of final stage of Q School, playing for your card.
Yeah.
That's more pressure than playing for your first win, because if you don't win, if you don't close out that win, you're still getting a massive paycheck and like your life is great. Getting the card can be the difference between living a wonderful life and going back to the crazy grind of Corn Ferry Tour or mini tours. So everybody at that level, I think, is prepared to win.
I mean, that's so well said, and just your thought process and insight on that. Like, as you're saying it rings so true. And we often say, like, how do you put this? Like, there are very few guys in the field who sort of put that personal pressure that, say, like a Xander or a Rory are putting on themselves for next week.
Yeah.
Most of the guys, like, to be in that position where it's a major or a bust, like, you're so good. That's like there's no, like, your lose, like, the downside is your point of, like, the guy that gets to win that event, set his schedule, like Taylor Moore, for example, who you were on pre-tournament. I was bet live, one of my lone bright spots on the year. Like, now the ability to win, set your schedule, just set your life for the next 2 years is probably more equal to the pressure Xander will feel tied for the lead Sunday in the Masters. Right? It's not going to be more for Xander than that Taylor Moore. No, I know Moore didn't really have an actual moment because he wasn't like in the final groups, but I think you get what I'm saying. And to that point, the guy to get his card is more important, or is more pressure than Xander to win the major.
Yeah.
Because Xander to not win the major, he's still just going to be a lifer T20 golfer who makes every Ryder Cup and not for wanting anything. So it's hard not to agree with something like that, although it is bigger and different. It's just different, right?
But like, it's a different type of pressure, but
and then you even see a guy like Phil, which I mentioned to Pat, when he like was winless forever and finally won in Mexico, and he acknowledges like how nervous, like you feel like you're chasing your first major. And not to say like congrats if you made your early Jason Day bets, but Jason Day's even acknowledged, like, I trust my game fully, except I swear he said this in an interview.
He did, yeah.
Everything is great. I trust my game fully. I still don't know how it will respond, like, in the heat of it on the back nine on Sunday. But you can only find out by being in that spot. Okay.
So a little insight on that is when you go through like a big swing change, you never know how committed you're going to be to that change once you get into a high pressure moment, because you get to a point after you've made a swing change where it just becomes second nature. Like the muscle memory you've retrained it and you're just making your new swing now. And then you get into a pressure moment and all of a sudden you make a move that you used to make that you don't make anymore. It's like, where the hell did that come from? So that's what he's, I think, referring to there is he doesn't know if like the old habits of his swing are going to seep in that moment, or if it's going to continue to be second nature to make his new swing. And then one final point I wanted to make on this discussion about guys just really being prepared to perform under the highest pressures in golf is we've talked so much, or you hear so much in the golf industry about like how different the game has become. Technology has improved, but then you're also getting much better athletes who work that much harder on their games, particularly on their bodies in the gym, in the weight room, all that stuff. One overlooked aspect is I would venture a guess at like 10 to 15 years ago, well under 50% of players were consulting sports psychologists of any kind or mental coaches or any kind. And now I would bet that it's well north of 50% have some kind of mental coach, sports psychologist that they talk to every now and then, something like that. So all these guys also are now just more prepared to deal with that type of stress in the moment and before the event, just like preparing themselves mentally to deal with that stress and to overcome it.
And now, I mean, even on top of that, right? All of it. I mean, you're probably know guys like deeper in it than I am, but like the fact that a lot of these top guys are mid-level guys or any pro golfers, they hire data scientists to
Yep.
tell them how to play the course, which in many ways can alleviate some of the pressure of having to make those decisions, I guess. Yeah, it's multifaceted on many levels. To even survive that college golf grind. And then you even see these top players who have won majors and they'll joke like after a Ryder Cup or something, be like, I felt more pressure on that putt than I did
Yeah.
like trying to win a
Yep.
major. It's this weird juxtaposition that
Mhm.
that can happen, and that makes those match plays or team golf that so much fun. But I totally, yeah. I mean, Alex, I am old enough where I liked sports at a time where you didn't even judge a quarterback till he started 30 games. Like to have an opinion on him was just disingenuous to the
Yeah.
sport. He had to have two. Now it's like if you can almost tell like if they have it or they don't, and yeah, guys fall through the
Mhm.
cracks. And to the point where you weren't ready to win a major before 30. Like you had to learn it, you had to feel it, you
Mhm.
had to experience it. Now they come from these, they're just out of the tunnel, ready to go. Yeah, in all sports, not just golf.
Yeah, it was almost like the older generation thought that Colin Morikawa was just disrespecting the game of golf by winning majors as early as he did.
Yeah, and speed and speed in that level, but
Yep.
and there's other guys that take that can still develop like a classical player or
Mhm.
quarterback that just that they need that seasoning. Like it
Yeah,
just means it to them. And Dustin
definitely.
would be a really perfect example. Like he
Mhm.
wasn't ready, I guess, or he had to take his lumps and then finally like got it, turned 30 and became the best player on planet Earth. So it's not like we're void of examples of a slower
Mhm.
development, but now these guys, quarterbacks, basketball players, Sotos and baseball, like they just come and they're ready to be what we never thought when we were children. Like we were told that wasn't allowed to happen in many ways.
Right. All right. Valero Texas Open. Let's start with some course fit. So it's a strong model this week. It points to both aspects of off the tee being predictive, distance and driving accuracy, both accounting for over 15% individually. Strokes gained around the green, so short games this week are at a premium. Over a third of the entire weight just goes to strokes gained around the green. As we've talked about a number of times on this show, I think that's in large part because, hey, you're actually going to need to rely on your short game quite a bit this week. But I think there's also a lot of signal there on just course management and being able to miss in the right places, set yourself up well to recover and to get up and down from pretty easy spots. And on that note, because both driving and around the green play are so predictive, we see a lot less weight on iron play here than most. And I think that makes a lot of intuitive sense, I think, to me and hopefully to pretty much everybody listening, where, it's yet another thing that we've discussed a bunch on this show, that it's one of those events where your ability to hit the ball close and to hit greens is often going to be more dependent on how well you drive the ball here than it is on how well you're striking your irons. And then putting is actually quite predictive here as well. I know Josh found, in addition to a great signal just on stroke gain putting, a really, really like uniquely high signal here on 3-putt avoidance. So Geoff, how does all of that kind of relate to how you've been approaching it so far? Anything stand out to you that you maybe weren't focusing on that now you will? What are your thoughts?
Just sort of taken aback at how difficult it appears to putt here. I sort of came into the week with full perceptions of a birdie party probably required, some level of resort course scoring. But then you realize, no, the course can actually play difficult. It does have its teeth, but yeah, I don't know. So guys like Corey Connors can win here off a Monday quali. So you can maybe like lean on a guy like Robbie Shelton, who's been driving the ball so well and his approach play has been solid, but he can't putt for anything, that you just hope it turns.
Have you seen the wind forecasts?
I saw it's supposed to get windier on Thursday afternoon, just based on the first round leader guys doing their discourse.
So windy.com has winds starting on Thursday morning, like high single digits with gusts around 15, getting to about 13 to 15 miles per hour in the afternoon with gusts just under 30. Then Friday, the peak winds are going to be over 15 miles per hour in the late morning, and gusts are going to reach 30 kind of late morning and stay around 30 until about 4 in the afternoon. So we could see, as you said, some high scores this week and maybe a significantly over par cut line, which I always love that. I think historically, like the tougher the course has played, the better I have done in betting and on DFS. I don't necessarily have an explanation for that, but it has certainly seemed that way for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the rhyme or reason to any of that. They also make for more entertaining golf tournaments when players can make those bogeys. You can play from the rough here too, but you just don't. If you're wider than the rough, you're in big freaking trouble. It's like the rough isn't penal, right, but going OB feels more likely than other courses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think a lot of this driving accuracy signal is also a course management signal where it's about the miss. One of the reasons why we love our stroke gain driving accuracy metric is because it doesn't treat all misses equally. There are a lot of instances on this golf course where there's a particular really bad miss off the tee where you can end up like being lucky to just have an opportunity to chip back into the fairway horizontally. So avoiding those misses is a lot more important, I think, than hitting the fairway. But yeah, I think another point there is like I've heard a statistic being thrown around that this is the only course on tour where it's easier to make birdies from the rough than it is from the fairway. Wow. I haven't seen the data. I don't know exactly where that comes from, but I would venture a guess, pretty confident guess, that is a misleading stat, because I think what it says is there are probably birdie holes and bogey holes. And I would guess that what this stat is actually telling us is that it's harder to hit the fairway on the birdie holes than it is on the bogey holes. Think back to last week in the match play at Austin Country Club. I believe the stat they threw out on Sunday was that on the par 5 6th hole, only like 36% of the field had managed to hit that fairway. By far the lowest on the course. But of course, people are making birdies left and right on that hole because it's essentially a long par 4. So like, are there any holes where on that individual hole, more guys are going to be making birdies from the rough than the fairway. I would have my doubts. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that that's just kind of a misrepresentation of the data.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. It's like everyone is just like greenside and a little hustle of rough on a par 5, and they all can get up and down for birdie from this spot. Like I don't know. I don't know how to quantify something like that. My mouth kind of hit the floor when you said it, though, so I don't want to totally. I don't want to.
There are. I'm looking at the
They're
distribution
hard
now.
par 5s here, though.
Yeah, the 14th hole, for example, historically 42% birdies. The 17th is at 31%. The 18th is at 25%. And then you have a whole bunch of holes with single digits or like at most 15%. So all we would need for this to be true is that the holes that are being birdied around 10% of the time are easier to hit the fairway than the holes that are being birdied 30 to 40% of the time. That's not really telling us anything actionable at all. It doesn't tell us anything interesting about how easy it is to score from the rough on a given hole. It just tells us which holes are easier to hit the fairway on and which holes are easier to birdie.
Interesting.
All right, let's talk about some picks. I know we actually have overlap on an outright bet this week, even though I've only made one outright bet. I have Nick Taylor 45-1 in an each way on Bet Rivers. This guy's been playing really, really good golf. He's been gaining in every single aspect, and particularly he's been great around the green. He's been accurate off the tee, and he's been making a ton of putts. I think he's a phenomenal play this week. I think he'll be a core play for me on DraftKings. Anything else I missed as to why you like him as well this week?
No, I mean the strokes gained tee to green, the approach stats seem like they'll set up well for him. He seems like he has. I don't think at least the very early numbers kind of were maybe disrespectful to Nick Taylor, and he's had quite a. I mean, everyone sort of remembers Phoenix and how he showed there right before the Super Bowl, but he's had a nice little run of events. 19th at the Sanderson, 6th at the Fortinet, 7th at the Sony, 20th at Pebble. I mentioned 2nd at Phoenix. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like it sets up well for that all-around approach tee to green. Go steal Corey Connors' thunder from Canada. Let's go.
I would love that. How about from a DFS perspective? Do you feel like there's anyone in this field that stands out to you as somebody that you know you're going to have in your lineups?
Yeah, a few guys. I already mentioned Robbie Shelton as one of those guys. I like Will Gordon. I like Ben Martin. There's a Garrick Higo. The other Korean Kim. I know, maybe I'm just listing names, but yeah, I'm sort of I'm making. I find myself over investing in a few guys. I'm having fun this week. Maybe I shouldn't. It's the week before the Masters. I should rein it in, but I like this field. I like. I've enjoyed building.
I did say you have quite a sizable card this week.
Yeah, it was 6 guys. I didn't start my card till 50-1. So for me, like that's pretty high. That allows me to do a lot. But I got addicted to those internationals that sort of opened right at the middle of the board from Fox, Cam Davis, Højgaard. He's playing so well tee to green, Alex, and off that second place. I'm a sucker for the undervalued European and Nick Taylor and Aaron Rai. And honestly, I wish I got some of those. There was a 66 on Matt Wallace at Bet Rivers on the Open, which just seems so high and so disrespectful. Yeah. And hearing you talk about everything this week, it almost like even if Wallace wasn't off the win, it seems like it seems like a great layout for him. And he showed in Europe that he can run his form and run his wins. I'm expecting him to play really, really well, and I guess he's off a win, so he's probably going to be popular, which sucks.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of Wallace. He's been a lucky charm, if you will, of mine, where when he finished second at the Memorial, that was maybe my most successful DFS week of all time, really. And he was like 1% that week. I had him everywhere. So I'm always inclined to use him, but man, right now, like when he's at his best, he's partially at his best because he's lights out on the greens. He hasn't even been putting that well. His short game has been magical as always, but he's been uncharacteristically great with the irons. I don't know how much I can trust that. Plus, this course says iron play isn't as predictive. So I don't know. I definitely prefer to be on the side of playing him, but I think he's a fade for me this week.
Yeah. I mean, I'm almost ended up on fade because I do feel like he's going to be quite popular. But yeah, I'm attracted to a lot of these internationals that make up the middle range of the betting board.
A guy that's similar to Wallace in the sense that he can be magical on and around the greens. His iron play has been good, but has this glaring weakness with his accuracy off the tee is Eric Cole. Do you have any feelings towards Cole this week?
If it plays tough, like I like Cole, I think he's gonna play well. If the course plays tough, that seems like where he can excel. I don't really have a strong lean, but I have nothing bad to say. I like him way more than I don't like him. I trust him. Some people might think it was a one-hit wonder. I actually trust that he'll hold his own for a while here this year.
He's somebody that consistently seems to pop in the course fit stuff for both myself and Josh. So I wanted to ask you about him. My long shot of the week, now not betting him, but a guy that may end up in my DraftKings lineup, $6,500, Michael Thompson. Can't say that I've ever used him in a lineup before, but he's fairly accurate off the tee, very solid both on and around the greens. His only weakness is iron play, which maybe doesn't matter quite as much this week. So I think Thompson might find his way into my DraftKings lineup. How insane do you think that is?
I don't think it's that insane, to be honest. I don't think it's that insane. I expected his outright number to be a lot higher when I was looking at him earlier in the week, and then was surprised to see that it was just flirting with 100-1.
I didn't even know that he was in the Valspar field, let alone that he had a top 20 that week.
Yeah. Well, speaking of guys in that range who played well at the Valspar and have maybe been playing sneaky okay, what about Patton Kizzire? I mean, you worry about the miss off the tee just being the big miss, right?
Yeah.
But if he can avoid the big miss off the tee, the approach, it kind of feels like it's there, and you always can trust his putter. I've bet Kizzire. He's made 3 birdies in a row, and then he'll hit 2 straight balls out of bounds. And you're like, I was excited for 4 minutes.
Yeah. I also have been a little bit underwhelmed.
I'm rostering him. And Grayson Sigg, I like too, if we're going into the deeper part of who I might be rostering.
Kizzire has one of the stranger recent forms where he has either been bad around the green or spectacular. He'll gain 1.5 strokes and then he'll lose 0.2 3 straight weeks, and then he'll gain 1 1/4 and then he'll lose 4 straight weeks. It makes no sense, and it makes me a little bit afraid of him, at least from a DFS perspective. I think I like his outright more than I would more than I do him as a DFS play, because it just seems like, man, the bust risk is so high.
Yeah, I mean, and as you were saying that, I'm like, it does seem like the more ideal outright play than DFS. But I don't know. For a moment in time, if you stare at the stats, and recently, it does look like the game seems well-rounded at the moment. If that might be the way to put it. Well-rounded. The stats. Even where he historically is bad, it seems like it's been upticked.
All right, Geoff, if anyone wants to find more of your stuff, where can they do so?
Find me on Twitter over at G Feinberg 17, Alex.
Right. We'll be back next week on Monday for the Master Show. Fortunate enough, I get to go down for the practice round on Tuesday. So show's going to have to be on Monday. We will catch you guys then. And Geoff, thank you so much for joining this week.
All the best, Alex, anytime.
Hey, man.